House by Edward Lee is actually two novellas in one book. The first novella is called The Pig, and the second one, The House. The Pig is about a young man called Leonard who's an aspiring film director. But of course, he's young and he's got no money and he needs funding. And he goes down the wrong path. He steals a bunch of cameras, and then when that doesn't work, he borrows some money from this dodgy loan shark from a man he meets on the street. He can't pay the money back, and so these two gangsters come round his house to collect the money. And instead of killing him, they come up with a plan B, which is to kidnap him, take him to this remote shack in the middle of the countryside, and they kind of force him to become an animal porn director. This first novella is set in the late 70s, and it's got a lot of references to 70s music and 70s radio. It's got a real 70s feel to it, which I appreciated. I quite like that stuff. And so you've got this young man in this shack with two junkie women, completely hooked on heroin. And they're stuck there because it's so remote, they can't just leave. These gangsters leave for days at a time, and they go and do their business, and they come back every few days, but they can't escape because it's so remote. And while they're gone, this young man, Leonard, has the responsibility of making animal porn films. And he's got to do them very good, because when they get back, if they're not ready, he'll just get beaten up or worse. And so it's actually quite scary. It's like real life horror, because this happens to real people, you know. If certain people get hooked on drugs, if you're a junkie, you're completely dependent on drugs and drug dealers, and you can end up in a horrible situation. I mean, this is an extreme example, but so it's got, you know, this novella, it's got scenes of animal porn, and the way these gangsters treat the women as well. That they just turn up to this shack, they get them to clean up, they use them for sex, and they just turn up every few days with bags of heroin that they just throw at them on the floor, and they kind of like scurry towards these bags, and they can't wait to get their next hit. And then you've got Leonard, who's trapped there. You know, he's finally living his dream of being a film director, but it's animal porn. It's good. I enjoyed it. It's dark. It's scary. Some memorable moments. There's a certain scene where these gangsters bring a woman back to the shack, and this woman is the daughter of a judge. These gangsters work for a top mob boss, and this judge sentenced one of the gangsters to, like, he gave him a life sentence, and so in retaliation they kidnapped this judge's daughter, brought her back to this shack, and they torture her in like the worst way possible. They cut off her toes, they cut off her nose and ears, they scalp her. They cut off her head, and then one of them does something to her head. I won't even describe it. It's actually on par with the kind of thing that you read in American Psycho, and that is really near the mark. This is up there with American Psycho material, when they kidnap this judge's daughter. Of course, you've got the animal porn stuff, which is very graphic. There's a scene where these gangsters bring back this dodgy... He's either a gangster or he's some kind of dodgy lawyer or something. It's a man, and he's got this genetic disorder. It's a bit like elephantitis. So he's got this huge penis and massive balls, right? And they get this young man, Leonard, and he actually fucks this man's giant penis. I won't describe it in great detail, but a man fucks a penis, a giant penis. I've never read that anywhere else in any kind of novel, extreme horror or otherwise. So that was an experience to read that chapter. So if you like shocking scenes, this novella certainly has them. It kind of went downhill towards the end. Towards the end of this story, the characters became unbelievable. There's like a religious Amish camp that's next to the barnyard and that. I won't ruin the story, but towards the end, he meets some women, some different women, and the characters are a bit two-dimensional and unbelievable. And to my disappointment, it actually gets supernatural as well. It starts off as a kind of junky, realistic, real life horror story, but towards the end, it gets a bit supernatural, and I'm not into supernatural stuff. So that it didn't ruin the story, but it went downhill for me towards the end. Now, the second novella in this book is called The House, and this one is set in the late 90s, which is 20 years after the first story, and it's about a young journalist who lives with his father and stepmother, and he gets a job writing an article about the house, the same house from the first story. It's like a derelict house now. Nobody's been there for 20 years, and it's supposed to be haunted. So he gets a job writing an article for a magazine about this house. And he goes there with his stepmother. His stepmother is this kooky, new age liberal type she's into arts and crafts. And so the both of them go to this house and stay there for a few nights. He's writing the article, the young man's writing the article, and his stepmother is there just for the experience. This second novella, The House, is basically a haunted house story, and it's set in the same house, the same location as the first novella, but 20 years on. I was a bit disappointed by this one. Again, it's supernatural. It's about ghosts, and I'm not really into that stuff. And again, the characters are quite laughable, really. Quite unbelievable. There are certain infantile scenarios, and it didn't scare me as well because it's all about ghosts. It's quite entertaining here and there. There are some very lewd scenes with this young man and his stepmother, so it gets quite erotic. So there's some sex scenes in it. It's quite entertaining, quite funny. It's a bit like reading a Richard Lehman novel. Richard Lehman's material is it's entertaining, but it's infantile at the same time. A lot of lewd scenes, but it's not that scary. It's like candy horror kind of thing. If you're thinking about reading this book, my recommendation is to read novella number 1 only, which is called The Pig. And I must say, it's got the best opening line I've ever read in any book, ever. Are you ready for this? This is line number 1 from The Pig. Sissy looked at the shot glass full of pig semen and threw it back neat. Without hesitation and in a smooth single gulp, she swallowed it all, smiled into the camera, and licked her lips as though she just tasted exemplary cuisine. Thanks very much for watching. I'll be back in about 2 weeks with another book review. In the meantime, try to have a good day on this bestial, pornographic, murderous piece of rock we call Earth. Lots of literary love. Goodbye.